Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Red Burnoose by Roberta Taylor and Matt Shoemaker. Alright, so here is the Red Burnoose all set up. In this game, we are playing the Algerians, and we are trying to stave off the French. So this is a game for 1 to 4 players. It is cooperative, so however many players there are, you're all working together to outlast this French deck right here. And the French army is going to reinforce itself. It's going to activate. There are 3 armies that are going to march from these locations on the board at the edges, and they're going to try to come in and take over your villages. So during setup, I drew 3 of these cards that are going to tell me what units to add here. And then this army is actually ready to deploy because when it gets to 6 units or more, then it's going to deploy. And we have 6. So we would flip it. We know that they're coming to the Tiruta Pass. And we'll put an army here to indicate that that's what they're doing. And we'll also be putting our own pieces in our villages to defend ourselves. So we can put out sharpshooters, mujahideen, and mujahidat. And the way that we're going to do that is through deck building and playing our cards as well as possible. Everybody's starting deck is going to be a little bit different because it's going to depend on which leader that you end up with. So in a standard game, you're going to deal out 2 leaders and a person will pick one of the 2 and then make adjustments as needed. And all of these leaders are going to have different powers. So they're going to contribute icons to you. And then some of them can actually be placed as fighters on the board. Some of them allow certain kinds of cards to be added to your hands. This will let you start the game with an extra market and fig orchard. And you're just going to have to try out a bunch of different leaders and see for yourself. You've also got this deck of just sort of standard cards. Everybody has the same starting deck except for the modifications that you make based on the leader that you have. And on your turn, you're going to draw 5 cards. If you're playing solo, you're managing all these villages with a hand of 5 cards. If you are playing at a different player count, then different players are going to take responsibility for these different village groupings by color. But what you're going to do is you're going to draw your cards, and then you have a few options on your turn. So you can take 3 actions total, and those actions can consist of playing a card and then using the ability written on the card, reserving a card, and basically what you can do is you can place cards into these villages, so you tuck the cards underneath, and then a lot of times something good will happen from that. And you can also take all of your cards back out of a village, and there can be effects from doing that, and also it makes those cards available to play again. So you can use the villages to get special card powers activated. You can use them to kind of thin your deck by stashing cards that you don't think are really that good. And you can also store cards that you think you'll need for the future and then pull them out from under a village, and then bam, you can play a big move that you were saving up for and you wanted to make sure that you'd have access to those cards from your deck. You can also mobilize. So if you have mujahideen and sharpshooters in villages, mobilizing them lets you move them from one village to another. And so depending on where the French are going, you might want to shore up certain villages before others. You can ambush. So if you have a weapon card and a mujahideen or sharpshooter card, instead of placing cubes on the board, you can discard them from your hand and use them as an ambush action against the French. So you can do 3 things on your turn that are actions. After that, you can purchase up to 2 cards. So you have a static market over here. This doesn't change. You can just run out of different cards. But basically, the cost in different resources is down at the bottom. And then the value for purchasing other stuff later is up in the top right. So all the really good cards are over here, and you're going to have to figure out how to budget for them because you absolutely need them. Stuff like food especially is super scarce, so you're going to want to make sure that you're getting a fig orchard because you can't recruit more people if you don't have food to feed them, etc., etc., etc. There's also an automa that's going to take turns, and on its turn, all you have to do is flip a card. And so basically this card is going to tell you what units to add to armies. So basically if an army is already deployed, you're going to keep filling up the next army, which will then deploy, and the next army that'll then deploy. And then if they're all out there, you can add reinforcements. And there are also symbols on the card that are going to tell you basically if there's a choice about which direction to go. So if we come to a fork in the road, you'll see there are different symbols on the board. So the symbol on the card is going to help you direct where that French army is going to go when it moves. Combat is resolved through die rolls. So as you can see, there are a whole bunch of different dice over here that you're going to roll depending on who is in the fight. There are a bunch of reroll tokens that you're going to want to earn because trust me, you're going to want to reroll some stuff throughout this game. And then routinely throughout the game, you're going to have to check for retreat or loss. So you can make the French retreat if you reduce their army to a certain value. So if 2 or fewer units remain in army number 1, it will retreat and leave you alone for a little while. Of course, it'll be back. You, the Berbers, might have to retreat depending on how a battle went. So you might have to take your forces and retreat to a further back village in order to hopefully regroup and go back at the French. And then if all of your Berber units are removed from a village during combat, the player controlling that, if in a multiplayer game, has been conquered and then is eliminated from the game. So basically this game ends with a Berber win if the French deck is depleted and you're all still there. But the French will win if you have both used the retreat token and you still get conquered, so you can only retreat one time before you end up in trouble. Or if any two Berber players have been conquered in a multiplayer game. So you do not have a lot of leeway to get your butt kicked in this particular game. You have to manage your resources very well, or else the French are going to overrun you and it's not so hot. And that is a very basic overview of the Red Burnoose. Let's get to some final thoughts. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I'm just going to be upfront. This is a game that I really, really wanted to like, but I think it fell short in some crucial ways. So we're going to cover all of that. But I want to start with the good, because there is a lot of good here. First of all, the subject matter is great. I was really excited to see a game that is about Algeria and that is about this period in history and that is about fighting the French instead of an invasion game. So thematically, the Red Burnoose is like really hitting a lot of notes that I really like. And so I really, really wanted to love this game. And it's not just the theme that makes it attractive. There are a lot of really interesting mechanical elements that are going on in this game as well. So I loved that this was an attempt to do like a deck builder combined with a war game. So both types of game elements were there, and I really liked that. I enjoy cooperative games with an automa, so I really thought that, attempting to have players cooperate in that particular way was really good. And some of the ideas in the deck building I thought were great. So the idea that you can thin your deck by placing cards in various villages and then pull them all out into your hand to potentially play again was really smart. And I've actually never seen that in a game before. So I thought that was a super cool element that got added to this game mechanically. I would like to see more games try it out. And I liked that it was a bit of a double-edged sword because, you use it to thin out your deck, but also if a village that has young people in it gets attacked, you can't just retreat. You have to stay and fight for them. So you have to be careful like where you put those cards. And so, there's a lot of interesting thought that's going in how this game is played. I like the different leaders. I liked conceptually that different types of people and elements of life were represented in the cards. And aesthetically, the game is really beautiful as well and is very much in keeping with the theme. So there's a lot going on here that's right. And unfortunately, it just doesn't hit a home run for me despite all the things that are good about it. Mainly because it's just not fun enough to play. And I know that I don't talk about fun in a traditional sense with a lot of games on this channel. I'm really interested in historical theme and in the theme coming through. And, I don't necessarily need a game to be beautiful to be happy with this. There's a lot I'm willing to tolerate in terms of gameplay in pursuit of an interesting historical point. But unfortunately, what I think is happening here is that there's actually sort of an issue with the economy of the game. And so I'm sure there was thought into why things are the way they are in this game, but it impacts my engagement when I'm playing. So a lot of this really, my biggest beef with this game has to do with the icons on the cards. So not only are these icons difficult to see, they're all kind of black and white, they all look just close enough that I spent a lot of time kind of squinting and making sure I understood costs and, what cards had to contribute. Is that food? Is that a missile? What is that? And so I really found that part of the game irritating because I had to keep checking and I kept misreading things. But not only that, but some of the more expensive cards in this game are just so tough to get, and you need them in order to deploy, say, a sharpshooter to deal with the French army. So if you are having a food shortage, then you can't get more firepower. And there's also a lot that goes into getting things like tools or getting weapons, and it makes sense, right? Of course, it would be difficult to be a Berber dealing with a French invasion in Algeria in 1857. I get it. However, I felt that because I was trying to build my deck in a way that would give me access to this stuff, I kept having these turns that felt dead. Turns where I was really working towards a card I absolutely needed in order to make progress, but it just wasn't in my hand that turn. And so then I just kept feeling like I was wasting time, especially when I was desperate to be able to get more military to put out there to combat the French. And could I get things working eventually? Yes, but it really felt like trying to turn the keys of a car and the engine just won't turn over. And realistically, it probably felt like that sometimes during this conflict, but that's not how I want to feel when I'm playing a game. And so I found it just dissatisfying to play because it was like I could just never get a really nice snappy turn. And if I can't get that, like, I really just can't stay engaged with the game for very long. I need to feel like I'm actually doing something instead of just spinning my wheels, and this game did not accommodate that need enough. Not for me. Other issue that I have with this game is that, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful game. There's so much to recommend for it. But it's got a huge errata page already on Board Game Geek, and a lot of the issues that had to get resolved have to do with the solo mode. So the other thing is that if you purchase this game, you have to know to go to Board Game Geek to find little rules corrections and stuff, and you have to be the sort of person who would already know that. So if you didn't know that and you're thinking about playing this game, go to BGG and look at their errata page because you absolutely need it. But I just felt really disappointed that would happen. I know that a lot of work went into this game, and seeing that kind of sloppiness out the gate, it's just like, oh, darn it. Like, I just really find that frustrating when that happens. And normally I'd be willing to forgive it, but I'm not enjoying the game enough on its face. And so it's just another thing that I find vexing about it. And I kind of feel like games should be approachable. They should be easy for you to get into, and they should hook you when you're there. And the Red Burnoose just isn't doing that for me. Ultimately, this is one of those games that was just a miss for me, but I really, really wanted it to be a hit. I love the theme. I like the aesthetic. I really like a lot of the ideas that went into this game in terms of design, and it just came up short for me. And so, if you still want to give it a chance, I would not say, like, oh, don't try it. Because, first of all, I would just never say that. And also, there is a lot of stuff that's of interest going on here. But if you're really looking for, like, a snappy, super engaging experience, if you and I share similar tastes across reviews, I would give this one a pass. This is one that if I were to revisit in the future, I would only be doing it for the historical interest and not because I'm excited to play it again as a game. And that sucks, because I really like Matt Shoemaker. I really want to see Roberta Taylor make it as a designer. So much that went into this game is so good. But sometimes, things just don't click. And this was one of those times. So that's where I'm at on the Red Burnoose. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, give to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. And most of all, happy gaming.